If you're joining us and you're seeing me, we're about to be live in just a minute or so. I'm just checking to make sure all the technology is working. It appears to be. Okay, I had to do a little audio check there, make sure that's playing. So we're just going to give people about another minute or so to join us. Right, I show 11 o'clock, so we've got a couple of people in. So we're going to go ahead and get started. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Christy Mulkey, and I'm the workshop coordinator with 240 Tutoring. I've been doing videos that we've been putting on our main Facebook page and here in our groups and on our YouTube channel and Instagram that have been a little more broad on general topics that appear on multiple exams. And what we got some requests for were more specific videos for specific states and specific tests. And so that's what we're trying to provide for you here today, is making sure that you are getting what you need to be prepared for your exam. So we're going to do this every Tuesday. And if you have a question, you can drop those in the comments. I've got about 4 devices going here, so I can keep an eye on those. And you can always put a comment in if you're watching this after the fact. So if you're not available right now at this time, you can, and you're watching this later tonight or even a few days from now, you can still drop a comment. We watch those and we'll take those as feedback of what you would like to see in the future. Again, we'll be doing this every Tuesday, but we're going to get started today, and we're going to look at the general knowledge math exam. That's one of the most frequently asked about tests, and can we get some help and support? So today we're going to take one of those competencies and break it down, and I'm going to walk you through some practice questions. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Now, hopefully you are seeing a PowerPoint pop up. All right, now I just have this PowerPoint so we can see those sample problems and that I can write and work along with you. So again, we're looking at the GK Math exam, and we're going to look at competency 1. Now, the structure of these videos is, again, to give you some specific help for your test. We're going to do explanations of that competency. So we're going to walk through the wording of that and how that looks. And then we're going to work through some questions together where I can teach you some strategy, some skills, and maybe provide some explanation. Because when you do these practice questions online, when you do the free ones that the state provides, they don't give you an explanation. They give you the right answer, but sometimes you don't know, well, where did I go wrong? Or how did they get that right answer? And so we're going to work through some of those today. Now let's take a look at this test. So you can see the math section is broken into 4 competencies. And today we're going to look at competency 1. So my mouse is, I'm having technical difficulties today. So I hope I'm able to write on the screen, but I don't know that it's going to be super cooperative. So we're going to give it a try. So when we look at competency 1, we are looking at knowledge of number sense, concepts, and operations. So we're going to be comparing real numbers and identifying their location on a number line. We're going to solve real world problems with all 4 operations, and then we're going to evaluate expressions involving order of operations. So if you're unfamiliar with that, we're going to talk about that a little bit today. And forgive me for that little bit of lag in my mouse. The internet here where I'm at is just not being real cooperative today. So hopefully you can follow along and I'll be able to write on the screen. So let's look at some practice questions. Now, this first one is number 1, and these all come from the free public practice questions that are on the FTCE website. And you can see that website noted down here at the bottom. I have that on every slide, but we're just going to look through those questions and work through them together. Okay, so this one's looking at comparing real numbers. Which of the following symbols should be placed in the box to form a true statement? Now, I'm going to attempt to grab my pen here. We're going to see if it's going to work. Now, it is difficult, and hopefully you know that in order to compare fractions, I'm going to try to turn on that pen again, guys. I'm so sorry. I don't know what's causing the lag. We have to get, is not going to let me write with my pen, so this is going to be real fun. We're going to see how good I am with a mouse, okay? We have to get a common denominator to compare these fractions. In order to do that, we've got to figure out what is a common denominator for 3 and 5. Now, the most obvious one, we can multiply those 2 digits together. They're fairly small, is going to be 15. So I'm going to take that 1/3 and I'm going to convert it to something with 15. So we need that 1/3 to equal something over 15. Now again, I'm drawing with my mouse, so be patient with that little lag there. We're looking at 3 times what would give us 15, and that would be 5. So if we multiplied by 5 on the denominator, we're going to multiply by 5 with the numerator, and 1 times 5 is 15. No, 1 times 5 is 5. I'm so distracted by the mouse that's messing up that I can't even do basic math. Okay, so I'm going to change that to the eraser real quick and just erase that and change back to the pen. Oh my goodness, my mouse has gone berserk. You gotta love technology. Okay, so 1 times 5 is 5. So this fraction becomes 5/15. Now we're going to need to convert 2/5 to 15. So I'm going to take that 2/5. Using that common denominator, I'm going to get it to equal something 15ths. So same process. 5 times what will give me 15? Well, we already know that's 3. Multiply 2 times 3. That will give us 6/15. So we're looking right here. Now, something that we didn't discuss just yet that's super confusing is there is a negative sign. So we are looking at negative fractions right here. If you just answer this without acknowledging the negative, you will get this wrong. You will get this wrong because we're comparing negative fractions here. Now, I'm going to draw a little number line, or I'm going to attempt to with this mouse. If we're looking at a number line with right here is 0, and we go backwards from 0. And we say this mark right here is -1, which would be the same as -15/15ths, because when our numerators and denominators are the same, we have 1, okay? So if we place these on the number line, we know that right here would be 1/15 if we broke this up into equal parts, -1/15. And then we would have -2/15, and so on until we get to -5/15. And then right behind that would be -6/16. Or 15ths, excuse me. Okay, so when we look at the number line, when we're talking about negative numbers, whatever's closer to 0 is going to be the larger number. So 5/15ths, -5/15. So when you look at this in terms of negatives, -5/15 is greater than -6/15. So here's a little trick I used to teach my elementary kids. I don't know why it did that or why it's skipping forward. My mouse has a mind of its own today. Oh my goodness. Okay. Stop. Okay, I'm gonna try that again. Trick I used to teach my elementary students. Oh, geez. Okay. So here we go. Is you put 2 dots by the larger number and 1 dot by the smaller number, and then connect the dots. So if we have 5/15, -5/15 is greater than -6/15. The correct answer here is C. All right. So this is real tricky, real tricky, because if you ignored those negative signs, you would have said the correct answer is B, because on the positive side, 6/15 is actually greater than 5/15. So it's real important that you note those negative signs, okay? So that's that question. If you have any questions about this, feel free as we go to drop something in the comments. I'm watching those on my phone as we progress. So we're going to move on to our next question. Now this one is problem solving. So it's back to that part of the competency that talked about problem solving. So it says the regular price of a computer is $1,200. And the regular price of a printer is $300. An electronics store has a promotion that offers a 40% discount on the printer when the computer is purchased at the regular price. What is the total cost of the computer and the printer at the promotional price? So I'm going to draw a little picture here of what's going on. So we know this person is purchasing a computer that's going to cost $1,200. Forgive me, this is so much fun to draw with a mouse. And they're going to purchase a printer that's going to cost $300 at regular price. But we know this one has a discount of 40% off. Okay, 40% off that regular price. But ultimately, we want to know, what is this all going to cost? What is this all going to cost? So there's a little bit of math to do. Now this one's fairly nice because you can use your calculator. Use your calculator. Now, if you don't know how to figure a percent, this is where a calculator comes in real handy. So I'm just pulling up my calculator right here. That's being a little bit finicky because, you know, no technology is going to cooperate with me today. Okay, so I'm pulling up my calculator, and the first thing I'm going to figure out is, what will this cost be? What's 40% off that printer price? So I just do 300 times 40%, or 0.4, and I get 120. So I know that 40% off is going to take $120 off of that total cost. Now here's the tricky part. A lot of people will get that 120 and they go, oh, there it is. Add it to that 1,200, they get 1,320, and they mark the answer A. That's incorrect. Now that's just working too quickly. So I want you to slow down. And really the cost of that printer, we're going to have to do a little math. 300 minus 120. Now if you can do that mentally, that's great. If you can't, look, it's literally going to take me about 2 seconds on the calculator. You saw how long that took. That cost of that printer is now $180. So printer with that discount now is $180, and I can add that to the $1,200 if you're not good at that mental math, and you quickly get the correct answer of B of $1,380. So this is one of those problems where the calculator comes in super handy. Now on the real test, you'll have an on-screen calculator. You'll have that on-screen calculator. So be sure you've practiced with that and make sure you're good with a calculator. All right, we're going to move on to the next question. I'm going to attempt to use my pen again. Let's see if it'll cooperate. Ooh, it looks like it may, maybe. No, okay. Had to try, right? So this next one, we're actually looking at comparing real numbers. And it says, which of the following symbols should be placed in the box to form a true statement? Now, this one's actually very easy. I always would teach students, let's line up those decimals, okay? Let's make a little place value chart. So if this is our ones place, and then we could have tens place, and this is our decimal, and then we have our tenths, and then our hundredths, and we could keep going and going, and so on, as many places as we needed. And we're gonna put those numbers in there by lining up the decimal. So I'm gonna put that decimal in there for the first numeral, and then I'm gonna put that decimal in there, and I'm gonna fill in the rest for the second one. This prevents you from making a silly mistake. At first glance, you can go, oh, more digits. This one's greater, and choose this sign. That's not correct. If we look at these decimals, our ones place is the same, so we go to the next place value. We go to the tenths. The 4 is greater than the 3, so this would be our larger number. Again, that little trick I showed you earlier, 2 dots by the larger number, 1 dot by the smaller, connect the dots, and now you know the correct answer here is C. Okay, so be sure you line up those decimals. You didn't have to draw this chart. If you just wanted to quickly line up those decimals, it makes it real easy. This is great for money or whenever we're dealing with decimals, and you can line them up without all that fancy place value chart and just go one place value at a time. Now, I want to remind you, if some of you are like, I still don't understand, this is confusing. Whenever we're looking behind the decimal, we can add as many zeros as we want, and it doesn't change the value of the number. Let me give you an example to help you a little bit here. If I write $5, you know this is $5. If I write $5 this way, these are the same. The zeros behind the decimal do not change the value. So I'm going to say that again. Zeros behind the decimal do not change the value of the number. So if you want to put those zeros here just to make this look a little more friendly, you can, just like we can add the zeros behind money. So those zeros are irrelevant. This is the same. We do one place value at a time. One place value at a time. As soon as we see this 4 is larger than this 3, doesn't matter that this has a 0 and 9 behind it, because we could fill this in with zeros and it not change the value. So in this problem, 3 4/10 or 3.4 is greater than 3.309 or 3 309 thousandths. All right. Again, if you have some questions, drop them in the comments. I'll be happy to answer those as we go. We're going to go to the next problem here. It's comparing real numbers again. Students in a mathematics class are allowed to drop their lowest quiz grade. So we're going to drop the lowest quiz grade. If a student earns the following grades, which grade will be dropped? So really, the easiest thing to do here, in my opinion, now, you know, in math, even when there's one right answer, there's often more than one way to get to that right answer. So I'm going to show you what works the simplest and the quickest for me, because I know I can use a calculator, okay? I'm going to change all of these to percentages, so I don't have to worry about common denominators and all of that business. So I'm going to change each one of these to a percentage grade, okay? So let's say that student had an 8-question quiz, and they got 6 out of those 8 questions right. To figure that out, anytime we want to change that to a percentage, we do the total correct divided by the total, or the numerator divided by the denominator. That's how we change that fraction to a percentage. So I'm just going to grab my little calculator I have sitting on the desk, and I'm going to do 6 divided by 8, and I get 0.75. Now, if you're thinking that's not a percentage, whenever we have a decimal, to change it to a percentage, we're going to move that decimal place over 2 places to the right, and 0.75 becomes 75%. Everybody with me so far? All right. You can even push a percentage button on your calculator if you know how to do that, but just remember, move 2 decimal places. Easy, easy, easy. Now we're going to take that 2/3, same principle, divide numerator, number correct, by total, numerator divided by denominator. We get 0.666666666, and it goes on forever. So we're just going to stop that after 2 digits, 0.66. You could even round it to 0.67, move that decimal. We're getting about 66%. Okay. Now the 73 is already in a percentage for us. So we can take that one, 73%, and then quickly do this one. 6 divided by 10. If you can't do that mentally, I hit the wrong button on my calculator, you're going to get 0.6. Now this is where you remember, you're like, uh-oh, I can't move it 2 places. Remember, we can add a 0 behind the decimal and it doesn't change the value. So I move that decimal 2 places, 0.6 becomes 60%. Now we can easily compare these, and we can see that the one that is the lowest quiz grade is the 60% or the 6/10. So the correct answer here is D. Now I'm going to walk you through a little mental math, and if that scares you, just tune me out for just a minute. I want to quickly do some mental math here. So when I saw this, I saw 73%. I knew 6 out of 10 was going to be 60%, because 6 out of 10, 60 out of 100. Okay, we can add those zeros behind. I quickly saw that. I knew 2/3. I knew if I took 100% and divided it in thirds, I'm looking at 33, 33, and 33. So 2/3 of that would be 66%. And then the 6/8, I just reduced that fraction in my head to 2/4. And I know 1/4 of 100 is 20, or 1/4 of 100 is 25, not 2/4. Excuse me, I should write while I talk. I can reduce that to 3/4, and 1/4 of 100 is 25. 3/4 would be 75. So I just did that quickly in my head, and I quickly saw that this would be the lowest percentage grade. If you're watching and you're like, ah, mind blown, just do what I said first. Use your calculator, make it work for you. Okay, so that's how you do this question. Now, this next one, we've gotten asked so many questions about this question about questions, because this one is complicated. So I'm going to read it to you, and then I'm going to tell you some strategy. Are you ready? An electronics store has a current inventory of 50 stereo systems. The lowest price stereo system in the store sells for $800, and the highest price stereo system sells for $3,000. Which of the following is the maximum amount of $3,000 systems on hand if the current inventory totals 111,000? Some of you are like, oh, that's overwhelming just to read. I'm going to agree with you. Okay. This one has so many variables and requires so much math to do this. Here would be my strategy for you. Flag it and come back to it. This one took me several minutes to work, and I've been a math teacher for years. And so I want you to be comfortable with the fact of skip it and come back to it. This one's going to take some time. Go through and work all the ones you can work quickly. The last few have taken only a couple of minutes to work at the most. But this one, when you see me work it out, you're going to be like, ugh, that's a lot of math. That's a lot to think about. I don't even know if I could have set that up correctly on my own. That's okay. This is a complicated problem. This is a complicated problem. Now I'm going to show you the way I worked through it, but just know it is perfectly okay to skip it, flag it, and then come back to it if you have time. Do not, when you start setting this up and you realize, this is going to take forever, do not take forever on it. If I, as a veteran math teacher, were taking this test, and I know it's a time test, I would skip this problem. I would flag it and come back to it, because I know it's going to take me several minutes to work it out, And so don't be afraid to do that. That's my biggest tip I can give you about this problem. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up this math for you. What we want to say is we're going to set this up with some variables. Now, the first thing I'm going to say is Let's see if I can get my pen back. Nope. It's not wanting to give me my pen back. Pen, there we go. Okay, so we're gonna look at, we want as many of those $3,000 stereo systems as possible, because it said, what is the maximum amount of $3,000 systems? Okay, so we're gonna take that maximum amount and we're gonna call that A. It also told us that there is an inventory of 50 systems. So whatever's left, B, A plus B has to equal 50. So this is going to be the other stereo systems, whatever they are, okay? Now I'm gonna plug this in. So I know, I'm gonna set up this equation that I'm gonna have A, however many of those $3,000 systems, so that's the number of $3,000 systems, A times 3,000, and this is difficult to write with a mouse, so I hope you're following me, plus the number of the other stereo systems, so that's B, times, and I'm going to do it times the smallest amount we have to work with, times 800, okay? That's the smallest we can work with. And that is going to have to equal 111,000. So there's the equation. Even when you just get this equation set up, when I was working through this, I'm like, I saw the equation, I'm like, I'd definitely skip this question. Would definitely skip this question, okay? Come back to it, but I'm gonna work through it. So if you have time to come back to it, you know how to do this, okay? So they're giving us possible values for A. How many of those? The number of expensive systems. So I'm going to start with the largest value because it's asking me for the maximum and work my way down. So I'm going to plug those in. Process of elimination. There are other ways to solve this problem. This is just the most simple to me. So I'm going to say, if I take answer choice D, okay, that is going to be 37 times 3,000 plus, now I know if A is 37, whatever B is has to equal 50. So B in this equation would be 13, because 37 plus 13 equals 50. So at the very lowest amount, we could have 13 at that $800 mark, okay? And we could solve that. Now I'm going to use my calculator to make this a lot easier. I'm going to do 37 times 3,000. Now I'm looking at my calculator. I'm using one on the iPad, okay? And it's 111,000 right there without even adding anything else to it. So I can rule out D right there because I know if I add this number, I'm going to be more than 111,000. So I'm going to save myself some time and not even work out anymore. D cannot be correct. Then I'm going to go with the next one. C, again, I'm working largest to smallest because it's asking me for the maximum amount. All right, I'm going to take D and I'm going to set up this equation, 35 times 3,000. And just for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and do that math. Okay, 35 times 3,000, no, don't push the wrong button, is going to give us 105. So I'm at least below that 111,000 mark. So I can keep going. Plus, now if I have 35, remember A plus B has to equal 50. So this amount, my B would be 15 because 35 plus 15 equals 50. So 15 times 800. If I put that in my calculator, gives me 12,000. I don't even have to put these numbers in my calculator. I know if I add these two numbers up, I'm going to get more than 111,000. So I'm going to rule that one out. Then I'm going to go to B, and I'm going to do 32 times 3,000. I really missed my pen right here at this moment drawing with this mouse, but I hope you can read it. I'm going to put that in my calculator, 32 times 3,000. and I get 96,000. And then I'm going to set this up. I know if I have 32, 32 plus 18 would give me 50. So I'm going to do 18 times 800. And I get 14,400. I'm going to add those up. Just using my calculator here because it's right here and it's handy. And I get 110,400. So that is the maximum amount we could have here. Now you're probably thinking, but it doesn't equal 111,000. We're just figuring out what's the maximum amount of those $3,000 stereo systems. So even if we plug in the cheapest ones as the other variable, we're under that 1,100. So maybe one cost, you know, $1,000, maybe one cost 800 and something or $900. So this is our answer. So the correct answer is B, 32. Now you might be thinking, now Dr. Mulkey, if you had started with A, you'd have figured this out a lot faster. But I would have probably went ahead and tested C. So it's the same no matter which you worked. I took the approach of maximum amount. I'm going to start with the largest number they've given me. So I did do some guess and check here with the answer choices. Now that I've worked that all out, you're probably thinking, now I see why she said skip this and come back to it. So even me as a veteran math teacher, that took me several minutes to do. Okay, now I'm going to move on to the next question for the sake of time. So we have again, now this says estimation with problem solving. That's an error. That should actually say order of operations. That's my mistake. That is, we're looking at order of operations here for this question. So we're going to simplify this. Now, here's where you need to know this good old expression, and you have heard it before, even if you don't remember what it means. PEMDAS. If you don't remember PEMDAS for order of operations, there you go. The P stands for parentheses. That's what you solve first. The E stands for exponents. That's what you solve next. The M and the D go together and stand for multiplication and division. And the A and the S go together and stand for addition and subtraction. If you have both multiplication and division together, you work from left to right. If you have addition and subtraction together, you work from left to right. All right, so we're going to solve this equation or simplify it. I'm going to do the parentheses first because we're not trying to solve it, we're simplifying it here. I'm going to do 15 minus 3 and I get 12. All right, and then we have a division symbol here. Okay, we're going to do 2 plus 1, which is 3. We have our multiplication symbol. We're going to work those parentheses. 8 minus 6 is 2. Okay, now remember what I just said. Multiplication and division go together. If they're both presented, you just work left to right. So we're actually looking at 12 divided by 3 times 2. So in this case, 12, oh, my computer is like possessed today. 12 divided by 3 is 4. I'm so sorry. I don't know why it's doing that. All right, 4 times 2, I'm gonna try not to touch anything extra, is 8. All right, so the correct answer here is C. Okay, now I was working with one of my younger personal children and she was watching over my shoulder. I'm like, hey, this is good practice for you as you go back to school. And she was like, well, you have to do multiplication first. So she looked at this equation. I'm just showing you a common error that could happen. 12 divided by 3 times 2. And she was like, you have to multiply first because the M comes first. So she did 3 times 2 equals 6, and 12 divided by 6 equals 2. This is not correct. That's why I started when I explained PEMDAS that multiplication and division go together. And so then you work left to right, left to right. So we would divide 12 divided by 3 equals 4 times 2 is 8. Notice my daughter's incorrect answer was there. It was there. Okay. Now, also, if you just work left to right, not paying any attention, be careful. Now, this one was set up nicely with those parentheses, but you have to be careful. You can't do 15 minus 3 divided by 2 plus 1 times 8 minus 6. Okay. Got to work those parentheses first. Okay. So I hope this has helped you review the items that might be in competency 1. I know when you go online and take those practice tests, it doesn't give you the explanation. So hopefully this has helped you a little bit. I want to remind you of a few things. Again, know your test format. How many questions? How many do I need to get correct? What are those questions going to look like? What's my time limit? When I know I have a time limit, that helps me remember it's okay to skip those complicated questions and come back to them. If you run out of time, just come back and put in a guess really quickly. Familiarize yourself with the setup. What does the screen look like? The state of Florida has practiced items you can look at so you can see what it looks like on the screen. They have that on-screen 4-function calculator, and you have a math reference sheet. I highly recommend you take a look at that math reference sheet so you know what it looks like. Practice not only questions and working through them, making sure you can do the math, but practice working through them as quickly as possible, figuring out the quickest way to get to that answer. All right. Now my mouse is completely frozen. So here is that reference sheet. You can see you have formulas for area, surface area, and volume. You have that Pythagorean theorem. You have conversions there for you, the formula for simple interest. So be familiar with this so you can quickly locate things you need. We'll be doing some more videos with some more practice math, and we're going to get into some of the other subjects, some practice questions for the general knowledge exam and reading as well. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. I don't see anything in the comments right now, and since we've already gone over that 30-minute window, I'm going to close us out. But again, I'm Dr. Christy Mulkey with 240 Tutoring. We're going to do these live videos every Tuesday. If you can't catch us live, it will be recorded and still in our Facebook group. It'll also be posted to our Facebook channel for FTCE. So go check us out on YouTube, our YouTube channel, and look for that FTCE playlist, and you'll find these videos there if you're more of a YouTube fan. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. I'm Dr. Christy Mulkey with 240 Tutoring, and I thank you for your time and wish you all the best of luck.